new to using contour, contouring your images, or using the dodge and the burn tool, then you might want to try this technique first before you start getting into more advanced things using layers, especially if you're quite new to Photoshop or just getting to grips with things like layers and masks and stuff like that. This is probably going to make your life a little bit easier to begin with. Now, there are multiple techniques for adding contour and shaping your images, and this is just one of them. So you might find that this is perfect for you. You might find that this is one that doesn't work with the way artistically you create images. And that's totally fine. So first thing, what do I mean by contour? Contour is adding contrast, adding definition, adding lighter and darker areas to your image manually. It's done with a brush. It's done by you adding it in. It's not adding just contrast using things like levels or curves. It is manually choosing which areas we want. Now, why does this come into dance? Well, dancers are muscular. They've got a lot of definition, and some of the light we use may occasionally soften or not define the muscle as much because we're creating an overall effect, and therefore we can pump up that muscle definition and really showcase what they've created, who they are, their body shape and everything like that. Of course, you can use it for good and evil, because you can also use it to add a little bit more in when it's not there, when there isn't muscle. You can add a little bit of muscle. You can't go against what your lighting was in the studio. It will look weird, but we can define, if you're going to go with a little bit of a six-pack, you can give it a lot of a six-pack, and you can draw a lot in, and it can be quite fun. And you can also use it for shading arms and legs and all sorts of things. So it's a really, really good technique, and this is the simpler version of it. Now, for the simpler version, you only need to know the teeny tiniest amount about layers, but you are going to have to become an expert on the dodge and the burn tool. So let's have a look at the dodge and the burn tool first. Now, the dodge and the burn tool are located just here, dodge and burn. Now, you might see on mine, I'm not sure if you can see it, it says O and P. Now, they should both say O, but I have changed the keyboard shortcut so I can just flip between them. If you look at the top there, it just flips as I hit the keyboard between those two brushes, because I use them so often, and P was for the pen tool, and I don't use that at all. So it made sense for me to change that shortcut over, and I can just use O and P, which is why I can flip between them so easily, but you might find yourself going over here and clicking on them. Now, each of these tools, I'm going to start with the dodge, has 6 settings. I have to work that out. So what we have is a range which has your shadows, midtones and highlights, and that is what it is affecting, what part of the bit you draw it's going to affect. And then you have protect tones on and off. Now, this is quite an easy thing to understand, because protect tones does what it says on the tin. It protects the tones of the image. But this is a much harder thing to know what you need ahead of time, because looking at your image, looking at an image being contrasty, getting used to understanding pixels just takes time, just takes practice. Therefore, you need to play around with this a little bit and find out what you like. Now, I can give you a really good technique for doing that. First thing I want you to do is grab an image, anything you want. And I want you to put your exposure, let's go 100% even. Let's actually go 100% full on. And we're going to go on shadows first with protect tones on. And we're going to draw like that. So this is light, this is dodge is lightning, and that's through shadows. And you saw what happened there? I just did it and it went through. Let's turn protect tones off. See the difference? With protect tones on, it held on to those shadows, it held on to that contour much more. Now let's do midtones with protect tones on, and with protect tones off. So with protect tones on, it didn't affect the leotard as much, but it is midtones. Midtones is more in the middle. Most of this image is more of a midtone. So it was quite similar, but it has not protected that leotard with protect tones off. Highlights, protect tones on and protect tones off. So you can see it's burnt through a lot more. It hasn't looked up. It looks like some weird sun effect has come into it, doesn't it? But it hasn't protected these bits at all, whereas on the other one, it's held on to those tones a lot more. So why would you need protect tones off? It looks like that's so much better, doesn't it? Protect tones looks like what you always want to protect the tone of your image. Well, yes and no. Yes, you do. You will find times where you have background, you have flare, you have light coming in from a window, natural light, and actually Protect Tones Off is going to be the best solution for you. So it's worth knowing, but you are correct. Most of the time you will want Protect Tones on. Now let's go backwards here. Let me just take all these off and let's do our burn tool. And let's do the same thing, shall we? Should we go 100%? Why can't I type 100 at the moment? And let's do our shadows first. Protect Tones on. And now Protect Tones off. Now there's a difference. Protect Tones on just kind of contoured. Just kind of contrasted the image a little bit more. And off, it just darkened everything. Midtones with it on. And with it off, overlapped a bit there. But again, it's a bit more murky, a bit more in the middle, but it is the midtones, it is in the middle. And highlights with it on, which has made it very grey and horrible, and with it off, even more grey and horrible. Very unlikely to use the highlights Protect Tones off, I think. It's a bit of a weird one, it almost always makes it grey and weird. But then again, I'm a studio photographer. There's many locations and times like that you might need it. Now, I recommend massively that you do exactly what I just did there. Get an image. In fact, if you want to be the best, get 3 images, a light, a medium, and a dark image, and do exactly that. Try every single bit out and just see what it does. If you want to put it as homework, actually study it, write it down what each of it does, just so it's interesting. Because your brain understanding that will help you make a decision very, very quickly, right? Okay, I need to sort this bit of background out or that bit of dress. I would say that that's a mid-tone at 50% or whatever. And you can then decide exactly what you want to use on your images, and you can know more ahead of time, because this is a train your eye kind of tool. This is definitely the sort of thing where you need to roughly know what you're sort of doing. It's not just a case of there's not a technique, is what I'm trying to say. There's not a mathematic technique to it is this, it is that. Your eye is going to play tricks on you, so you need to kind of learn it. So once you've had a play with that and you've got to grips with understanding a little bit more about understanding the dodge tool and the burn tool, we can start using it for contour. Now, you'll probably never, ever, 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 ever use it at 100%. It's harsh. It's a lot. So what we're going to do, we're going to put it on mid-tones and we're going to put it on 20%. If this is too strong, turn it down to 10%. If this isn't enough, pump it up. I wouldn't go higher than 50%, but find what you need. And then what we can do is we can go in and we can start drawing. Now, when you are contouring with these tools, you need to follow the lighting that already existed. This is not for fixing your light. This is to enhance. That cheekbone's already there. That collarbone and that collarbone's already there. I can draw over that. That wasn't very good because I need to zoom in. But I can draw over that and enhance the shadows that already exist. I don't want to do that because that's where it starts looking weird when I start drawing randomly. You can do it as a whole area and that can kind of tone things down. But yeah, you want to be able to contour around. Now we come down this section, come down here, and I'm just following around where the shadow already was. You can see I've got to highlight that side. Ooh, whoops. And we'll draw that round here. And what I'm doing is I'm adding more muscle definition. You can see now that that is adding a lot more definition. But you can also see, you can see it's a little bit patchy. And that's because as I'm drawing, I can't, unless I do it all in one swoop, I can't keep it consistent all the time. I can keep adding and I can keep going and keep doing things. But it's just sometimes it gets a little bit patchy, or sometimes you actually just can take this a little bit too far. This is where our layers are going to come in. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to revert that back to as it was. So that's our original. If we duplicate our layer, Control J, or you just drag it down to the little plus button and it will do it there. And on that top layer, you go crazy. Do whatever you want. Draw, contour, do all these little bits with the dodge and the burn, shade, absolutely everything. I'm still on 20%, mind you, but it's doing exactly the same as we were just doing. And then I suddenly realized that I went, oh my God, what have I done? I've gone miles too far. Oops. I'm going to put this on, I'm on the dodge tool now, mid-tones at 20%. I forgot I hadn't changed that back. I'm going to click that and I'm going to contour up here. protect tone's on, and contour up here, and you can get carried away so easily that you think you're doing a really, really good job. And then the second you zoom out, you go, oh my God, I've made her into a skeleton. What am I doing? That is horrible. Because you have another layer, you can change your opacity down, which means you can then decide later how much you want. So that contour I did was awful, but when I add it back on, now it's subtle and it gives you just that little element of control. Now by having that, you can do this as many times as you want, create as many layers as you want for doing different things, but this way you can now contour in at your own pace, whatever you want to do. I'm just doing collarbones because they're there, to be honest. It makes them too much, but I'm doing it so you can kind of see. I picked this image just deliberately because on a big dance image, you would have a little bit too much dance material and things going on that you can get distracted. Here you can see my lighting is pretty boring, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So let's turn it off and on. So now using this technique, you can contour very simply, very, very controlled. You understand exactly what's happening with your midtones and your shadows. And I think because you are manually selecting, it's normally midtones at 20%, but you're manually selecting your shadows, your midtones, everything that you want to do, you're going to get to understand that tool a lot better. I will do like 9 times out of 10, midtones 20%, midtones 20%, like that's what it almost always is. For me, anyway, that's for my style. For you, it could be shadows at 10%, I don't know, but you can find what you like. But that is the first and easiest way of adding contour onto an image when you don't fully understand your layers and everything else. You can get to grips with it a bit better, and it keeps it a little bit simpler. So have a play, have a go doing a bit of contour. You can play around with any of your images doing this. This doesn't have to be dance. This technique could be anything. And good luck with it. I like to see what you create.